your office statewide coordination of elections, but you also have a responsibility for business filings and things like that. So you've worked on modernizing just basically the functions and operations of the Secretary of State's office. Computers, you're going to go paperless or what?
Well, a lot of things are. Our online filings are the highest they've ever been. And so it was actually an idea of an employee in our office when I first took office in the first term, is let's have a kiosk. So, because there are people that drive from the far reaches of Kansas to do a paper filing in our office.
Because originally you had to physically be there?
That's what it used to be before computers. And that's the way they've always done it. So what we've done is say, hey, here's a kiosk. Let me show you how you can do this online so you don't have to drive to Topeka. Mm-hmm. And so that's really driven it. The other thing that we've done is because we got our business services off our AS400 computer, which is a computer system Jack Breyer bought. That's how old it is.
You're still using it?
Just for a couple things. We should be off in the next 60 days completely.
What a blast from the past. And people, I wonder how many people know who Jack Breyer is.
I know. And you want to know who is the intern that had to help work with it?
Chris Kovach.
No, Ron Thornburg.
Oh, also a Secretary of State.
Also
who people probably don't remember either.
I know. So,
okay.
But all that being said, we'll be off it soon. But what we were able to do is, it used to be an annual filing. Now it's a biannual filing.
Okay.
And so that just lowers administrative burden. And some of the other things we're doing is we found out our LLC, we're overcharging for the work it takes to file an LLC. But when we do mergers and acquisitions, that fee was too low because it was more laborsome. So we were basically subsidizing mergers and acquisitions with the LLC fee. So what we did is we brought equity to that so that the fee you pay for is for what you get it for filing, and you're not paying for somebody else's filing, essentially. So fees are going down, and mergers and acquisitions are going up.
So you worked on reducing or moderating and leveling out the fees. There's an element here about other entities. I wasn't really clear what this was, but the other entities provide some of the services that the Secretary of State's office, but they were charging more than the state did. And so there's basically a disclaimer that the private business has to use?
They weren't even charging more. They were just flat out charging. They said, your LLC, or you may not be in good standing. Pay $300 and we'll verify that you are.
Oh.
Or you can just go to our website and check for yourself and not have to pay anything.
Oh,
and it was basically a scam. And when we shared that with the committee, we found out there were two people in committee that paid it and didn't know. So that bill passed. So just put the disclaimer, because it's just people trying to, your older filers, it's just they're predatory, trying to get money from them. And they don't do anything.
That's a good government piece right there.
Well, that's what we are.
Okay.
I'm a Republican. That's what I'm about.
You've got a certification program for training local election officials. Just what is that, and what are you trying to accomplish?
So we contracted Connie Schmidt, who's national speaker, but she's from Johnson County. She used to be the county election clerk in Johnson County.
Okay.
She did a procedural audit of the whole state, like how do you store your equipment? How do you deploy on election day? How are you processing your advance mail ballots? What are you doing with drop boxes? And she came up with a system to bring consistency across the whole state, because after COVID, a lot of our senior clerks said, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. So then you bring in a new person, and who's going to train them? So we do. And if they go through our training, they actually get a certificate saying you're a certified clerk by the Secretary of State's office, just to make sure they're getting the baseline education so that they can execute efficiently on an election.
I think it pushes the learning curve for those folks.
100%.
Yeah. All right. And I guess you could retrain too easier. I assume most people know this, or they'll assume to come to understand, but you are a candidate for the Republican nomination for governor in 2026. Have you lost your mind? What are you doing?
Well, so there's a couple things. One, property taxes are going through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some things when I was vice chair of tax that I would love to do, but obviously we were in a tax shortage under the Brownback administration that we couldn't do some of the things I wanted to do. I think there's some problems with the appraisal process that's built on old systems that need to be updated. The other thing is, and we learned this with the Croft bill on foreign nations buying property around our forts and our military bases, which are lifeline of those communities, and let alone the state. But there's no federal restrictions. At the state, sometimes we just have to do it ourselves. So I'm glad that bill passed, because we need to continue to look for ways that we can defend ourselves. Because if you look at the southern border under the Biden administration, the government wasn't going to help Texas, wasn't going to help Arizona and those small border communities. So we have to take care of our own security in some ways. The other thing is state government is built on outdated 1980 systems, just like my system was. And when I was in the legislature, they always were asking for obscene amounts of money to update. I updated my agency, and I didn't take one piece of SGF dollars, state fund dollars, to fund it. We use existing resources because efficiency pays for itself. We
Did
need
you
to
use federal money? Some federal money?
No, we hired more people, and we put more people in IT, and said once we got one person trained to start trading files, then eventually we could get another person trained, and then we can get another person trained, and we doubled the size of that agency just to make sure we were transferring files from a system that was made in the 80s to a system that's made for the 2020s and beyond. State government, I'm not the only S400 that is in the state government. But the governor's only going to be there another year and a half. Why would her secretaries want to take on another project? I want to take those projects on and modernize, because the trajectory of state government is going to be underfunded soon. And the best way to fix it is, one, grow the economy, and two, leverage technology and efficiencies.
Okay.